the one and only King Casey ONeill, who I've been trying to get on the show for what feels like years, and she finally fit us into her schedule to come on the program. King Casey, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I think it was you that was holding out on having me on the show, though. I was trying to get on there from the first one, but I was like, how many people am I going to have to fight before Ariel recognizes me? So thanks for the recognition.
Well, the answer is apparently 3. We were going to have you on last week, but you had a prior engagement. I wanted to have you on right after the fight, but again, very busy. It's hard to, get you to make some time for little old shows like ours. So I appreciate you very much, and I want to congratulate you on your run thus far. Does this feel like a dream for you? Like when you, kind of take a step back and look at what has happened in just a few months, and you're undefeated, 3 fights in, kicking butt. You just beat a Shevchenko sister. Like, how do you put into words what's happened to you this year?
Yeah, I think it's been a little bit of a whirlwind ever since I got to Vegas. I got to Vegas, I think, October last year. So I've been here for a year now, exactly. So I got the call not long after, and then things just started rolling from there. I didn't expect it to go this fast, to be honest. So it's been nice, though. I'm trying to slow myself down, but I'm someone who loves to fight a lot. And on the regional scene, that wasn't an opportunity. And now that it is an opportunity, I've just been like getting through them as fast as I can. So I'm grateful for the UFC for believing in me and taking the chance. And then obviously I always had the confidence in myself that I could beat these people. I just never had the opportunity to fight them until now. So yeah.
It's a fascinating story, yours is, because like I said, originally from Australia, and then grew up in Scotland. No, Scotland and then Australia. Yeah, other way around. So like the accent is wild because it like a little bit of Australian, a little bit of Scottish in there. What age were you when you moved from Scotland to Australia?
I think I was around 11 when we moved. So I spent a lot of my childhood growing up in Scotland, and then we moved over to Australia, and I went to school in Australia and everything, obviously. So I was exposed to the accent a lot. So my accent sort of mixed between the two. They're both really strong accents. So some words are 100% Scottish, some words are 100% Australian, and my accent just mixes between the two every sentence. And people get confused. I think that's the most common thing that people say to me. They're like, where are you even from? I sound a little bit crazy, but I like it. It's my own unique accent. So I call it a Scozzy accent.
I love it. Yes. That's the perfect way to describe it. And by the way, why did your family move from Scotland to Australia? You don't hear that often.
Yeah, my mom was a travel agent when I was growing up. So we used to spend every opportunity in the sun. My mum loves the sun, so we moved away from the gloomy Scotland to Australia so that my mum could be at the beach, I guess, and she wanted to bring us up around that as well, and I'm so glad that she did, because I'm definitely like a little island baby now. I just moved to Thailand not long ago, and then now I'm obviously in Vegas, but I love the beach. It's definitely my favorite place to be.
Now, your father, Cam ONeill, is a former kickboxer turned MMA promoter in Australia. What was his record in kickboxing?
I have no idea, to be honest. I'd have to ask him, but he used to fight every single weekend when I was growing up. That's all I remember is every Saturday we were in the car driving to some tournament that my dad was fighting in or whatever he was doing. And sometimes I would fight as well. And yeah, it was one of my fondest memories growing up. Just every weekend we were away at fights and my dad was competing and I was competing.
And is he the reason why, do you believe? Being around that, is he the reason why you wanted to do this, or was there another reason?
Yeah, I was 4 years old going with him, sitting on the sidelines, watching him train every night. So eventually I was really begging to get in there and train as well. And they let me into the adults class and I used to train with my dad and I loved it. And he couldn't get me away from the violence. He tried to put me in soccer practice and I used to be too aggressive on the field and get kicked off of soccer practice and everything. So MMA was the most natural way to go. And especially with him having such an influence in growing Australian mixed martial arts, he was one of the first sort of promotions around back in the day when I was 12, 13. I was working the desk and taking the tickets and telling him I was going to fight. training as well. And eventually he let me fight as well on his card.
Did you make your debut at 15?
Yeah, I was 15 when
I mean, with all due respect to Cam ONeill, I'm a father of a 4-year-old girl. I can't imagine her in 11 years getting into a cage fight. What was he thinking, for God's sakes?
So I had actually been begging him since he started the promotion when I was 13. So he held off for a couple of years. But honestly, I'm a strong-willed, determined little girl. I always was. And he wasn't going to be able to tell me no. I was going to keep asking until he finally said yes. And it was a couple of weeks shy of my 16th birthday. And he was like, okay, you know what? You really want to do this? Like, you can do it. So I had my first fight when I was 15.
Wow. And do you think that in his perfect world, you wouldn't go into fighting? Like, was he one of those ex-fighters who was trying to deter you from fighting and to go down a different path?
I mean, at first he was a little bit against it. Him and my mom were both like, really? Like, is this really what you want to do? You know, obviously my dad knows how hard it is. He never sort of like broke through and made it per se. You know, he was sort of like, always trying to fight to make it, and eventually moved into the promoting side of things. And he knew that it was heartbreaking. It was hard. It was going to take a lot from me. And I let him know and assured him and my mom that it was all I wanted to do. And obviously I started pretty rough. I lost my first 2 and I never gave up from there. So I think that that's when he sort of turned the corner. He's seen how much it mattered to me, that a couple of losses wasn't going to deter me from it. So ever since then, him and my mum have both been my biggest supporters and helped me any way they can to make it happen.
So I was just going to ask you about that. You started your amateur career 0-2. At that point, you're not starting to think to yourself, or other people starting to tell you, hey, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe we should do, it was a nice little story. You're the younger daughter of the like maybe we should do something else. Was that ever a thought that crossed your mind?
Yeah, so I was really young and got knocked out twice. So obviously it was a really hard thing to deal with. And I actually left the gym that I was at growing up because the coaches were saying, as you said, you know, maybe you should just do this as a hobby, just train, do some jiu-jitsu competitions and, you know, focus on something else. And maybe you should learn to do the promoting side. You know, they were telling me to sort of follow my dad's footsteps that way, but nobody was going to tell me no. Like I said, I'm strong-willed. I moved gyms and I sort of went underground for 2 years and just trained every day like a crazy person for 2 years. And then I came back with a vengeance and went on this winning streak. And yeah, it was hard to keep going, but I've always had self-confidence and self-belief. I believe that myself can get myself to the top. I'm the only person that needs to believe in myself. So I wasn't going to let anybody else tell me to stop.
Now, if you ask me, Casey, you have one of the best nicknames in MMA right now. I love your nickname, King Casey ONeill. It reminds me, I don't know if you're a pro wrestling fan, but there's a wrestler named Becky Lynch who calls herself the Man. And I love it. It makes people uncomfortable. It's so freaking great. I love everything. And I love your nickname just as much. Who came up with this nickname?
So it was actually my Australian coach sort of used to just tell me all the time that the way I trained was king shit. So he used to like refer to my work ethic as king shit. And I just loved the ring that King Casey had. So we started running with that. When I became a pro, I wanted to have a nickname, you know, and I wanted it to be good and polarizing and people were going to talk about it, good or bad. And I think that King Casey suits me so well, you know. I know that people don't love it, which makes me love it even more. And yeah, I'm going to run with it for the rest of my career.
Well, I love it. And I feel like that's most important in all of this. I mean, really, there's nothing else that matters than my opinion. So I think it's great. And I think you should run with it. Do you get a lot of crap for it? Like, do people, I feel like a lot of insecure guys will DM you and be like, yeah, it's a stupid nickname. How dare you, blah, blah, blah. You get that stuff, right?
I get it all the time.
Oh, God.
And that's what makes me love it even more. Like everyone comments all over, like the UFC uploads it and they comment like, why is she naming herself the King? Like,
oh, it's brilliant.
You know, I get that all the time, but you know, I can do what I want and I love it. So it's staying.
Please continue to make them uncomfortable. And so I'm wondering, were you one of those fighters? I had heard in the midst of the pandemic, of course, we're still dealing with it. Some fighters like moved to Las Vegas without even a shot at the UFC just to be ready because so many fighters were falling off. Was that your case? Because you were in Thailand, hard to get someone over. Did you move without even a shot so that they can call you easily and you'd be ready to go at the Apex?
Yeah, so I actually left Thailand during the COVID thing to fight in Abu Dhabi. I was fighting on UAE Warriors. And the way that my visa was set up, I couldn't get back into Thailand if I left. So I didn't even know I was coming to Vegas. All I knew is that I was going to fight in UAE Warriors and I was going to figure it out from there. So I kind of put everything on the line, and I was like, I need to win this fight impressively so that, I have options. So I sort of bet on myself once again, left with a suitcase and a backpack, and left all the rest of my stuff with one of my friends. I went and fought and I won. And my friend Loma Lukbumi was fighting on Fight Island. So I snuck in and started cornering her and made sure that I was in Mick's face as much as possible, telling him that he had to sign me soon. And I was 5-0 and making him know who I was. And then I jumped on the free charter flight back to Vegas after the Fight Island card.
Okay.
And had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't know any gyms. I hadn't really told anybody I was coming. So I just sort of showed up here and lived with B for a couple of weeks and started training at Extreme Couture. And then I got the call to fight in the UFC.
This is a crazy story. How did you get on the plane?
So I don't know, to be honest. I was just there, and then they were just asking who needed to get back to Vegas. And I just put my hand up and said I needed to get to Vegas. I just came in on a tourist visa. I wasn't even sure. I gave myself the 3 months and I was like, you have to make something happen. And I did.
Wow, that is amazing. Good for you. And that fight in UAE Warriors, were you really, I mean, that fight doesn't go your way. You don't have a ticket back home. You don't have the visa. How nervous were you? I feel like I would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. How nervous were you?
The nerves definitely kept creeping in because I knew that if I lost, I was stuck. I couldn't get into Australia. The borders were closed. Scotland, the borders were closed. Thailand wouldn't let me back. So I was sort of like, you're going to stay here. You have like $3,000 in your bank account. So you don't really have very many options. And I've always been self-confident. Like I said, I knew I was going to go in there and I was going to win because I gave myself no other option. And I always train hard and I knew that I was ready. So I went in there and got the victory, got the finish, and got the call.
So when you flew back to Las Vegas, did you have the UFC deal yet?
No.
So how did that happen?
So I just jumped on the flight, got here and started training with B. She had a place, so she's like, you can sleep on my couch. So I was literally sleeping on the couch of her Airbnb.
Wow.
No idea what I was going to do. I was wearing her gym clothes because I didn't bring enough. So I was literally borrowing clothes off of her to train. And then one morning we were in the gym training and my manager was trying to get a hold of me. And then I looked at my phone and he'd called me quite a few times and I answered the phone and he was like, you need to tell me what you weigh. And then he told me that I was going to fight Lauren Murphy on Fight Island. So I was like, yep, 100%. And we were going to take that fight. That was the Tuesday and the fight was on the Saturday. So we were basically leaving that night. So I left the gym, drove around and got all the tests done for the UFC, went home and packed my bag and I was waiting for the car to go and get on the flight. And then I got the call that I had COVID.
Oh,
so I couldn't go and fight, but they still gave me the contract and I ended up fighting in February.
What was that like to get that call? Was that devastating?
That was insane. Yeah. So I got the call and I was crying and so emotional, so happy. Went and got all the tests done, was running around, literally sitting on the couch after telling my mom, my dad, my sister, and everyone that I was fighting. And I got the contract. And then I got the call about COVID. And it wasn't even made clear to me that I was still going to have the contract. So obviously I'm devastated. So I start crying again, call everyone back and be like, actually, I have COVID. I'm not going to be able to fight. And then maybe an hour later, he calls me back and tells me I still have the contract. So once again, I do the whole thing all over again. So that was a roller coaster of emotions and definitely a memorable day I'll never forget.
And so that was the end of last year?
That was in October.
October. And so now you're settled. Now Las Vegas is home. No more Thailand?
Yeah, for now, a lot of things changed in Thailand during the pandemic. My coaches, George and Frank Hickman, are no longer at Tiger Muay Thai. They're actually in the middle of building their own gym, and Frank Hickman's here with me in Vegas right now. So I'm just waiting for them to sort out what they're doing. But for right now, I got a good thing going with Eddie Baracco and Casey Halstead here at Extreme and 10th Planet, Las Vegas. So I'm here for now.
And Frank Hickman, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't he sort of a part of City Kickboxing as well?
Yeah, he is. So we like to call him Frank the Chameleon. He basically fits in everywhere and anywhere. So yeah, he has ties all over the place.
And the bee that you were referring to earlier is Bee Nguyen, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, right? Killer Bee from
Yeah.
One Championship. You guys, I mean, like if you follow either of you on Instagram, I mean, it feels like you guys are really living the life over there. I mean, it's just like constant together, out here, out there, out there. I mean, it feels like you're thick as thieves. Is she like your best bud in this business right now in the sport?
Yeah, she's definitely one of my best friends. You know, we were both broke fighters in Thailand just trying to make it. So we were living in like grungy places in Thailand that barely had like running water or anything like that. You know, we were just living together, making it work, always talking about the days that we were going to be able to go around and do fun things and go to each other's fights and stuff like that. So once we made it happen, we stuck to that, and now we catch up as much as possible. She comes to Vegas. I just went to Texas to see her. So yeah, it's pretty good. We are living a pretty good life now.
You've come a long way from sleeping on her couch at the Airbnb. So 3-0 in the UFC. You're coming off the win over Valentina Shevchenko, 3 finishes as well. Who makes sense for you next?
I'm not sure. You know, I always said that I didn't want to be the person that got the promotional push too early. I'm still so young.
Why not?
I was 3-0 13 months ago. I'm now 8-0. So I've had the majority of my professional fights in the past year. So I'm just really trying to be smart about it. I want to be the next dominant champion in the UFC. And I think that in 2 years, I can make that happen. So I want to fight everybody in the division. So whoever they want me to fight next is just the next name. I don't care about fighting up the ladder yet. I don't care about fighting for the title anytime soon. I just want to get better and improve myself. And I think that's what I've proved time out. Each time I've been better. And yeah, I'm just looking to do that again. I hope to get on the pay-per-view in February, the big Australia New Zealand pay-per-view. So I'm holding out hope for that.
Wait, what would you say at the end there? The biggest what in New Zealand?
No, the Australian and New Zealand pay-per-view. So,
what is that? What are you talking about? Are you breaking news for us, Casey? What's happening over there?
No. So I just heard little rumors that in February there's going to be a lot of Australian, New Zealand fighters on one certain card, and I would love to be on that one.
Perhaps in Israel, Adesanya. It's not Adesanya, it's Adesanya or Alex Volkanovski. Names like that you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you associate more with Scotland or Australia now? Like, which are you more proud of to be repping?
Come on. I'm proud of both just the same. You know, I was born in Scotland, and that's an amazing thing. And I grew up there as a child, but on the Australian MMA scene is where I was like sort of born as a fighter. So I'll always like have a special place in my heart for Australia too. So I can't pick between the two. I love them both just the same. But I will say that the Scottish fans get behind me a lot more than the Australian fans do.
Why do you think that is?
I think they're just trying to claim me as their own because I was born there. So, and you know, in Europe, like you look at Meatball Molly and Paddy the Baddy and all that, they have such support from back home because in Europe, it's a big thing to support your fellow countrymen. Whereas, as Israel's talked about in the past, Australia and New Zealand are not there yet. They've kind of got this tall poppy syndrome where they don't really want to congratulate people as much. They kind of want to shit on you as much as they can. And I feel that definitely.
Have you run into the Scottish MMA legend Joanne Calderwood while in Las Vegas?
I haven't, but actually when I was like 18 years old, I went over to Montreal and lived in the TriStar gym for a month and trained with Joanne back then. So we haven't seen each other so much here. We also ran into each other at Australia at one point. So I've seen her quite a few places. It's funny, our journeys sort of taken both of us to the same places, and we're both from the same place. So yeah, I always root for Joanne and hope she does well, and I hope she gets the next title shot.
Wait a second. You know I'm from Montreal, right? Did you know that?
Yes, I know.
I mean, that's my... Did you go to the Orange Julep next to the TriStar Gym? Did you go to it? What did you think?
It was good. I liked it. Yeah, but this is a long time ago. I had the orange juice. I didn't have the spaghetti. Yeah, don't have the spaghetti. GSP is the only person I know on the planet who has the spaghetti there. I would not recommend it. And why did you do that? Like, why did you leave? Just to... Because you weren't a pro at that time, right? No, I I just wanted to try it out, you know. I knew I wanted to do this, like I said, for the rest of my life. So it was even from then I was doing things to make it happen for myself.
Wow. That is very impressive. And so I get the feeling because you're a very, you know, competitive person and you want to be the best. You're a fighter. I was talking to your manager, Tim Simpson, about you. I had to beg him to get you on the show. I mean, it was like pulling teeth from both of you. It was crazy. He said, you're a fighter's fighter. Like, you will not take no for an answer. You're a fighter. Beating a Shevchenko, even though it wasn't the champ herself, that had to feel a little extra sweet, right?
Yeah, I mean, it felt great, especially when they called us. We'd actually trained together in Tiger before. So they called me and I said to Tim, I was like, oh, I'll just check. Like, I'll message her myself because we had been very friendly and just check that she's okay with me accepting the fight. And he was like, she already accepted the fight. Oh. So that kind of lit a fire under my butt because I was like, oh, she just accepted just like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to finish her. And I knew from that moment that there was no way she was going to beat me. I knew she had amazing name recognition with the company. And it's no small feat to beat a Shevchenko, no matter which one it is. So I loved it. I got to finish her and Valentina was in the corner and, you know, came up to me and said thank you to me afterwards, which was a big thing for me as well, because I know in a couple of years I will be fighting her for the title. And maybe she was just sizing me up out the back, but she came to say thank you anyway.
So April 5th, 2019, that was your pro debut. Here we are, October 2021. You're 8-0, 3-0 in the UFC. You think within the next 2 years, so by October of 2023, you're the UFC flyweight champion?
Yes, 100%. I think I'm getting better a lot faster than any of these girls are. Like I said, 5 fights, 5 wins, 4 finishes in a year, basically. So imagine in 2 years what I'm going to do.
I love the confidence. Finally, I know that you were very close to Kyle Reyes, who passed away, and you wanted to honor him. How are you doing, you know, in light of his passing? I know, you know, we had Eric on the show not that long ago to talk about him. I know you guys were relatively close. How are you doing? How are you handling it?
Yeah, so, I mean, Kyle was like a big thing for us at Extreme. He was like the best training partner that you could ask for. He was anything that you asked him to be, a southpaw. I asked him to be a small woman for me every time. Like when I was fighting Shayna, he was my main sparring partner. So he just adapted to whatever you needed. He was a great friend, a great training partner, and he put everyone above himself, which in hindsight, I wish he had never done because he wouldn't have been in the situation that he's in obviously now. But just a massive loss for the gym. And it was really hard to get through a camp whilst dealing with that. But I had his daughter around. She was around a lot and I still get to see her and catch up with her, talk to her quite a lot. So she's a very positive light in my life as well. And I knew that I had Kyle going into that fight with me. So I knew I couldn't lose once again. And I still feel his presence every day in the gym. Eric made a massive tribute to him and put a big picture of him in the gym. So we get to see that every day when we're in there. So he's still in there with us. And yeah, just got to move forward and live life in a good way that he would, you know, be proud of.
Well, again, my condolences to you and the entire team. You guys are representing him very well, and you are doing incredible things. Congratulations on your success thus far. Good luck going forward. I can't wait to remind people of this in 2 years or less. Maybe it could happen in less than 2 years. But you have said in 2 years you are going to be the flyweight champion. That's very exciting when someone comes out in a confident manner and says that. And thank you again for, you know, carving out some time. I just like to keep, you know, stirring the pot. You know, people say that's what I do. But I appreciate you very much. And it was great to have you on the show. And I look forward to having you back on.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on finally, and I can't wait for the next time that you decide I'm worthy of the show. So thank you so much.
All right, there she is, King Casey ONeill, one of the rising stars